Mr. Chairman, it's Carney. Thank you very much for inviting me to the meeting. With your permission, I would like to appoint myself to join the committee for the purposes of this meeting only.
And I welcome your so joining our crew, our committee, as a member.
An August group, if there ever was one. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I am going to turn to Sarah to call the roll.
Okay, thank you. We have with us today at our audit committee meeting, June 1, 2022, John Gardner, our audit committee chair, Joan Sullivan, and Al Carney as members of the committee. Also joining us at the meeting are board members Jerry Romsky and Ken Evans. From DASNY staff, we have our president, Ruben McDaniel, Paul Koopman, Caroline Griffin, Portia Lee, Kim Ellis, Nadine Fontaine, Jenna Lee Flinton, Nick Palis, Jeff Arnold, Karen Ellinger, Tanette Tomlin, Steve Winters-Bona, Stan Reed, Dina Amodio, Lee Zhu, Deb Fasser, Amanda Nazario, and myself. And from KPMG, we have Ryan Kenyon, Marie Zimmerman, and Jeff Coach. Did I miss anybody? Okay, with that, Mr. Chair, I will turn it back to you.
Thank you. And we did that because we are still in the COVID rules. Before we move on with the agenda, I would like to acknowledge and welcome Jenna Lee Flinton as our new Director of Internal Audit. This is her first meeting in that capacity with this group. So welcome, Jenna Lee. Behind, I think it's tab 4 of your meeting materials, there should be the minutes of our last audit committee meeting. Does anyone have any comments, changes? I'm hoping that everyone's had a chance to review them. Comments, changes? Could I get a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Joan, I make the
Chairman.
motion.
Okay, I think that's Joan making the motion, and Mr. Carney is seconding. Is that all right?
I am seconding. Thank you.
Are there any opposed to approving the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. I would now like to turn it over to Kim to talk about the basic finance statements for the year ended, or financial statements for the year ended March 31, 2022. Kim?
Thank you, John. Before we move into the details, I'll give a quick summary of the highlights of this year's audit results. KPMG expects to issue 3 unmodified opinions on DASNY's financials, the supplementary information included with the financials, and DASNY's compliance with the State Controller's investment guidelines and DASNY's investment policy and guidelines. KPMG did not identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in our internal controls. Therefore, they won't be issuing a management letter. Unless there's questions, I'll now turn the discussion over to KPMG to review the required communications.
Thank you, Kim. This is Marie Zimmerman. I am the lead audit partner. I do not have your books in front of me, so I'm not sure if everyone can visually see our audit committee presentation or which tabs they're on. But if you have the presentation and want to follow along, I'm going to be starting right at the beginning. So to take us through our audit results, as Kim noted, we are planning on issuing an unmodified opinion over the auditor's report. In addition, we will be issuing a report on internal controls over financial reporting and compliance and other matters based upon the audit of the financial statements performed in accordance with governmental and audit standards. That report will note there were no significant deficiencies, nor were there any material weaknesses. So that will be also a unmodified or clean opinion. We will also be issuing an in relationship report for the supplementary information. And last but not least, a report on your investment compliance examination. We will be issuing an unmodified or a clean report over this states Section 203.1, Title II of the Office of Compilations of Codes, Rules, and Regulations for the state of New York. And we are proud to say we'll be issuing a clean opinion there. The one thing, upon approval of the board, we will receive management representation letters to be able to provide those opinions. Moving along to the next slide is our KPMG engagement team. I am proud to say that we had throughout the entire audit, all of our team members, as well as our M and WBE team supporting. We also utilize internal audit, direct assistance of Gia Ru throughout our audit, and we had no concerns or changes within our professionals. So this is the team that we have presented to you during planning. Jeff, can you take us through the expanding the use of technology?
Sure. Thanks, Marie. Good afternoon, everybody. So we are on slide 3 currently, and presented here in front of you is our use of technology both throughout the year and when we plan to go. KPMG, as we presented in the past, is on a journey. We're looking to try and make the audits more efficient and effective for both management as well as the auditors to provide deeper insights into the quality of information we're presented and overarching our audit report. During this past year, we used some tools such as Alteryx, Power BI, Data Sniffer, and KPMG's Compare engine to test various aspects of the audit, including bonds and notes receivable, or even your census data. In addition, as part of the current year audit, and as we talked about before, KPMG implemented our new KPMG audit platform, which is our Clara workflow, which is a risk-based platform that allows us to focus our attention both to where the risk lie for DASNY specifically, as opposed to an overarching generic workflow. Going forward, we look to continue to utilize these tools as part of our audit approach, as well as bringing other tools to DASNY, such as our defense routines, automated vouching tools, and other ways we can use our Alteryx and Power BI dashboards to more enhance the information and insights we gain related to DASNY. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan, who's going to take us through our required communications.
Thanks, Jeff. So moving on to slide 5, here's the summary of the audit results and the required communications and other matters. For the uncorrected audit misstatements, we only have one to note, and that's DASNY's non-GAAP policy for accruing payables subsequent to year end. And as noted, that we determined that this was not material, both individually and the aggregate to the basic financial statements taken as a whole. And there's no other non-GAAP policies or practices of significance to communicate as well. For significant accounting policies and practices during fiscal year 2022, there were no significant transactions recorded that we are aware of, which lacked authority or accounting guidance or consensus. And there were no changes overall to the significant accounting policies or practices to note as well. There are 2 significant accounting estimates of note that impact DASNY's basic financial statements, and that includes the actuarial assumptions related to the total OPEB liability, as well as the valuation of investments, which we'll talk a little bit more in depth on in a couple slides. So moving on to the next slide. There is no alleged or suspected illegal acts or fraud that came to our attention, as well as no non-compliance with laws and regulations. And at the bottom of this slide, you'll see our independence confirmation, where we confirm our independence in regards to DASNY, as well as our confirmation for our inquiries that all required inquiries have been performed to date and no matters have been brought to our attention. And again, we'll get into a little bit more detail on those in a later slide. Moving on to the next slide, slide 7, significant accounting estimates. As mentioned, for OPEB liability, the significant assumptions used in this relate to the discount rate, expected healthcare cost trends, projected salary and inflation rates, as well as the census data used to project the OPEB liability. Through our review, there was no indicators of management bias, and we were able to determine that the management's process appears reasonable and in accordance with GASB number 75. Moving on to slide 8. For fair value investment, similarly, the source of the pricing information was considered the significant assumption. And through our review, there was no indicators of management bias. And again, we're able to determine that management's process appears reasonable and in accordance with GASB number 72. Moving on to slide 9, other information. As mentioned, We performed limited procedures over RSI, including testing for internal consistency, as well as vouching the balance back to the financial statements to the audited account balances to ensure consistency. And no other material inconsistencies were identified through our review of the RSI. Finally, on tab 10, before I hand it back to Jeff, as mentioned, these were our inquiries that we asked throughout management throughout the engagement. And as noted, there was no reported, alleged, or suspected acts of fraud or noncompliance with laws and regulations. With that, I will pass it back to Jeff for other matters.
Thank you, Ryan. So in our other matters section, we just have here presented on slide 12, a link to our transparency report. KPMG periodically does update our transparency report, which is a externally published document around our internal quality controls and kind of the overview of how those align with the professional standards. On this slide, there is a link to that transparency quality report. So we do, let you know that if you want to take a look at that, please, by all means, please take a look. With that, that's our prepared remarks. I do just want to also note that we do appreciate management throughout the audit. Management gave us their full attention. There were no disagreements with management as part of our overarching process. And as a result of that, we were able to complete the audit timely and be able to present this quality audit report to you here today. We will open it up if there's any other questions or if we wanted to move back into any other matters.
Mr. Chairman, it's Alfonso. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to thank Marie Zimmerman on the record for the outstanding quality of her support of DASNY's external audit work over the last X years. We've all gotten to know Marie extremely well. This is her last meeting as lead audit partner for us. I don't know, Marie, whether we've been as good to you as you've been to us, but we are extremely grateful for your professionalism, for your understanding of the complexities of DASNY's business, and frankly, for your friendship, as we have gotten to understand the importance of external audit. And now, as we change internal auditors, it'll be an interesting transition because we're losing you. We have Jeff. Life is good. Jeff's been with us for a long time, but we are excited for our new internal audit position and excited for our new internal auditor. Thank you very much for all you've done for us.
Thank you, Al. For those that may not know, I have been working on DASNY for 10 years, as well as the lead audit partner for the state of New York. And so in accordance with independent standards, I will have to be rotating off after this year for a 2-year timeout. But although it'll be bittersweet because I've built so many friendships over the years and really thoroughly enjoy working with each and every one of you, I know I'm leaving you in good hands with Jeff Coach and Ryan Kenyon and the team. And so thank you so much for all of your professionalism as well throughout the years. And I hope to come back in a couple of years and to hear all of the good things that you have done over that time period.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you, Marie. On behalf of the entire committee, thank you.
I also want to add, as someone who had responsibility for the overall New York State financial reports, I want to give kudos to the DASNY staff and to KPMG for your timeliness. DASNY is probably one of the most complex component units for New York State, and it's so important to get it done timely. New York prides itself on getting the New York State financial reports in probably more timely than any other state. And it's because of the quality of the information that they get from people like you guys. So kudos to you. Job well done. Thank you.
Okay. Could I have a motion to recommend to the board approval of the dormitory authority's basic finance statements as of
John,
and for the year ended March
I
March
think I'm
31?
gonna go, I gotta go through the.
Oh, you gotta go
highlights
through
of
it?
Financials, yeah.
All right, go
I
ahead.
think folks want to hear a little bit.
Sorry.
Turning back to the financial statements included in the audit committee tab of your materials, I just want to review some of the more significant items that were included in this year's financial statements and provide you with highlights to DASNY's financial results for the year. Beginning with the executive summary on page 5, highlights for our lines of business included another strong year for our debt issuance activities, issuing approximately $9 billion in debt. This was slightly down from last year's record-breaking year, which saw increased activity in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. On the construction management side, we continue to work on a new academic building on the campus of FIT and the new School of Nursing at Lehman College, with work at the Javits Center advancing to receive a temporary approval for occupancy for several projects, allowing events to occur throughout the convention center. Due to disruptions in the economy led by the pandemic, we experienced record high inflation over the course of the past year. Interest rates had been at historically low levels for the past 2 years, impacting interest income earned on investments. At the end of the fiscal year, the Fed moved to taper inflation and institute measures to ease overall demand by raising its benchmark rate by 25 basis points for the first time since 2018 and signaling an additional 6 rate hikes for the remainder of 2022. This policy shift led to volatility in markets, with rates on government securities rising rapidly in March 2022, which caused a significant market value adjustment to DASNY's investment portfolio. From an accounting standpoint, we adopted GASB number 93, replacement of interbank offered rates. This is meant to address the cessation of LIBOR as a global reference rate, which had no impact on the financial statements. Turning to our financial results, overall, the financial statements reflect a decrease in our net position of $3 million, the majority of which is activity in our restricted funds. DASNY's operations showed a loss of $3.3 million, which reflects a $3.5 million deficit on the public side, largely related to the CUNY program. This was offset by a small surplus of $238,000 on the private institution side, primarily due to a $1.7 million surplus for financing and bond administration, offset by increased allocation of OPEB expense and increases for New York City rent as a result of a rent holiday. In terms of debt issuances, as shown on pages 8 and 9, we had approximately $9 billion of issuances for the year. Approximately 70% of that came from new money and refundings, with nearly 1/3 coming from new money issued for our public clients. In terms of distribution, and as shown in the charts, nearly all issuance, 90%, was on behalf of our public clients. On pages 11 through 13, you'll see we had $8 billion in bond retirements from the year. Approximately 35% came from scheduled redemptions and 38% from bonds that were funded by new DASNY bonds. The allocation by type saw an increase to 86% for public clients, slightly up from 84% in the prior year. Moving to pages 13 through 15, we ended the year with nearly $6 billion in outstanding bonds, a moderate increase of $669 million from 2021. The split between public and private bonds remained relatively stable at 73% and 27% respectively. In terms of our construction management line of businesses, on page 16 through 18, our total construction and loan disbursements decreased approximately $5.2 billion in 2022. Certified disbursements drove the decrease, with $5.2 billion in fewer disbursement requests, primarily due to the activity last year related to the state's short-term note transaction. Private clients' proportionate share of total construction expenditures increased to 21% in 2022 from 9% in 21. Turning to page 20, DASNY statement of net position remained relatively stable, with a decrease of $3 million in 2022. Primarily due to reduced interest income as a result of market value adjustment and the use of prior year surplus to cover operating costs, offset by an increase in contributions of cash and investments and a decrease in the net pension liability. Increases of approximately $2.1 billion in our assets and liabilities were largely driven by net increase in bonds outstanding and the related increases in amounts held waiting reimbursement to the state, in addition to increased accounts payable and accrued expenses. On page 21, you can see total investment balance of 5.7 billion reflects an increase of approximately 900 million, primarily due to new money bond issuance activity. Additionally, money market funds saw a $2.1 billion increase from the prior year, largely due to monies received for prepayment of debt service at the close of the fiscal year. DASNY's total investment portfolio has increased to approximately 11.5 billion. Also included with your materials, we have supplementary information that is provided with the financials. Those include schedules that break out financial statements between public and private clients in DASNY's operations, DASNY's budget and actual expenses for its operations, and a schedule of outstanding bonds and notes. We are required to submit the auditor's report and basic financial statements to the Office of the State Controller by June 30th. During tomorrow's board meeting, there will be a resolution for the board to approve adoption of the basic financial statements as of and for the year ended March 31st, 2022. Any questions on the financial statements?
I do not.
Okay. The next report is the annual investment report, which DASNY is also required to file with the Office of State Comptroller. The report includes our investment policy and guidelines and summaries of investment income earned and fees paid for the year. A copy of DASNY's financial statements will also be filed with this report. There were no changes to our investment guidelines during the year. And investment income reflected a net loss of 10 million for the year, 2.8 million of which was attributable to construction funds, with the remaining 7.5 attributable to all other funds. As mentioned earlier, the net loss is primarily the result of market value adjustment at the end of the year, which reflects unrealized losses. During 2022, DASNY paid approximately $739,000 for trustee and custodial services. Are there any questions on the investment report? Lastly, before I conclude, I do want to take a moment to thank the people that made the receipt of these results possible. In addition to the usual tight deadlines related to the audit, staff were charged with replacing the investment management system, which was completed in the last quarter of the fiscal year. They worked diligently to ensure all the investments were properly reconciled and accounted for in the newest system. In addition, they had to adjust to the new Clearwater system as they prepared reports and schedules in connection with the audit. Once again, I've been able to heavily rely on the experience, knowledge, and dedication of the finance staff to maintain our books and records accurately, to provide the necessary support to our auditors to ensure that we continue to receive unmodified opinions, and to ensure that our financial statements are filed with the state in a timely manner. In particular, I want to thank Lee Zhu, the Assistant Director of Accounting, and she had the support of Steve Winters-Bona, the Assistant Director in the Debt Unit, Stanley Reed, Assistant Director of Investments, Jeff Arnold, the Director of Budget and Operations, Kelly Ray, Manager of Accounts Payable, Tanette Tomlin, our Senior Financial Analyst in the Debt Group, and their respective teams. Without the dedication and oversight of these teams, today's audit results would not be possible. I'd also like to thank Gia Wu from our internal audit team who supported KPMG during the audit process. And lastly, I want to thank KPMG for their support and role in making the audit run smoothly. Thank you, Marie. This is your last year for at least a couple of years for our audit. And then Jeff and Brian, who's new to the DASNY engagement, as well as the KPMG team of professionals. That concludes my report, and if there's any questions.
Do we want to approve the two reports now or after Ruben gives his report?
Let me do mine and we just
Okay.
finish it all out. It'd be really
Yeah. You got to get in or I'll jump all over you.
Yeah, one of our requirements, of course, is to file our Authorities Accountability Act annual report, which is really a summary of all of the information in some of these other reports that you have seen. Jeff Gordon in our communications group, they've done a nice job of pulling it together in a relatively readable format. We try to make it as straightforward and simple as possible, but it is a lot of information. Again, we will get all these things filed on time as we always do. I want to commend the, our staff for the work they have done to get these reports pulled together. And again, there's a lot of volume of information. It is important information and they take it very seriously. So all these reports are ones that we are proud to send up and over and wherever they need to be. Also appreciate the folks from KPMG. I think it's worth noting that both Jeff, who's a couple years new to us, and Ryan, who's very new, rolled in very nicely with the team, have done a great job for supporting us. And so while we'll miss you, Maria, we do feel like we're in great hands. I just want to compliment Jeff and Ryan for the great work that they did. And Kim, your staff, as always, just does a wonderful job. And so on the record, I would like to thank you as well. So with that, Mr. Chair, you have 3 resolutions to approve moving to the board.
We do. Could I have a motion to approve the basic financial statements for the year ended March 31, 2022, and to recommend those financial statements to the full board?
I make the motion.
Thank you, Joan. Is there a second?
There is. I second.
Thank you, Al. Are there any opposed? Hearing none. Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion is, or that resolution is approved. Could I have a motion to recommend, to approve and to recommend to the full board the investment report for the year ended March 31, 2022?
I make the motion.
Thank you, Joan.
I second.
Thank you, Al. Are there any abstentions or not approvals? Everyone approves? And the resolution
We
is
approve.
carried unanimously. Could I have a motion to recommend, to approve and to recommend to the board the Public Authorities Accountability, Annual Accountability Act or report? Joan,
I make the motion.
I second.
Al? Is there any
second.
opposition, any abstentions? Hearing none, that one is approved. So we have now approved all 3 reports, and we have taken care of the primary business of the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment? It's a quick one, I promise. I do tend to go on and on sometimes, but Kimberly Ellis has produced consistent, extraordinarily well done financial statements. The statements that are audited are produced by Kimberly's group. I know, Kimberly, you don't do it alone, and you get big creds from me for making it clear that there are specific people who help you do that. But in the end, it is your management of that function that produces the financial statements, which are audited by KPMG, which have led year after year now to what I think are now called unmodified opinions. The AI CPA language changes, and I may be behind by a year, but that I think it's unmodified. I think that's what you all say. That's what you expect to get. It's an extraordinarily important accomplishment to produce for DASNY's unbelievably complex financial statements these unmodified opinions year after year. Kimberly, thank you for your attention, for bearing down on your people to make sure that they get it done the way it needs to get done. We are very, very grateful.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're here.
Thank you.
And now I am going to ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss the financial history of a particular corporation and matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. Can I have this motion?
I make the motion.
Thank you, Joan.
I will second it.
Thank you, Al. All in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. And I want to thank everyone who joined this meeting. I'm going to ask that the board members stay and that Paul Koopman and Ruben McDaniel stay for the executive session. And then I also want to point out that when we come back, and Sarah, we may need you to do this, There is one last item of business resolution that we're going to hopefully pass when we come out of executive session. The committee is actually approving.
Yes,
Now
the
you have to do it
committee's
again,
approving.
Ruben. You've got to
Okay.
put it on the record.
Yeah, sorry, just put on the record. Paul Koopman and I have met with and interviewed candidates for internal audit director. We are recommending to this committee, the audit committee, that Jenna Lee Flinton be appointed as the internal audit director of DASNY to replace Kathy Ebert.
I'd like to make the motion to approve that recommendation.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, aye.
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 Any opposed? The resolution is unanimously passed. We have approved Jenna Lee Flinton as our Director of Internal Audit.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. We'll get that paperwork together and keep you informed, of course.
Can
With
I
that,
have
if you
a-
can just close out the meeting, we'll be good to go.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that motion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none.
None.
The meeting is adjourned.
All right, we will see you all tomorrow morning at 9:30.
All
Thank you so
tomorrow.
much.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take
Bye.
care, everybody.